we are now going to do an interactive form, which is going to be a panel discussion between the speakers. And I will give the floor up to our sub-moderator, Ms. Orui Akiko.
All right, so good evening or good afternoon to everybody. So first of all, thank you again for attending this panel discussion. For the audiences and for the speakers to put their time into this event is really, really meaningful for us. So thank you once again. And now we are going to the interactive forum. So in this part of the event, we will be talking to the speakers directly and asking them questions, each of them questions one by one. And some of the questions will also be coming from the audiences. And we will also be asking the speakers to ask the questions to their fellow speakers, given if there is no time constraints. All right, so the first question that we got from one of the Slido questions is, how do we deal with people who spoil food or businesses who waste food? In Japan, we have rice and bread in convenience stores that gets thrown away after the day because they only expire, they're only valid for one day. So what is your opinion about food waste or people who, or businesses rather, who waste food? So let us first begin with the answer from our first speaker. So Dr. Chona, and then following would be Mr. Mike, and then Dr. Rolo. So Ms. Chona, do you have any answer?
Hi, thank you for that question. So I'm primarily a scientist, so my answer here would be based on my experience in the province where I grew up. So as I mentioned, I came from the province of Bataan, and there used to be a time when there were no big grocery stores or big restaurants in our place. And so majority of the food that we got would come from local markets. In the Philippines, we call them palengke. And for these local markets, instead of the food going to waste, you would see it that at the end of the day, people would actually trade food. So for example, food stalls who are selling vegetables would trade some vegetables for, let's say, excess meat from those who are selling meat, or fish from those who are selling meat. And sometimes also they would sell it at a lower price so that people who have lower incomes, for poor people, to be able to purchase their own food. So I think there is a mechanism, there is a way for us to be able to make sure that less food goes to waste. But in terms of circular economy, in the fisheries sector, one of the studies that my students have done is what happens to fish waste. And fish waste are usually gills, fish heads, things that people usually throw out. And in the provinces also, we noticed, because here in Manila, they're usually just thrown out and then transported to the dump sites. But in the provinces, owners of fish ponds would actually buy them, or people from the market would actually give them away or even sell them to people who own fish ponds, because they can actually be used as feeds for fish, or they can be used as fertilizer for farms. So there is a mechanism for us to do that. But that's just from my end. But I would love to hear options from a business and an economic point of view. So I'm looking forward to the answer of my co-panelists.
Yes, so thank you very much, Dr. Chona. So it's actually the first time that I've heard of like the fish scales and the waste of fisheries being sold to other people and even using them as fertilizer. And so that's, I think, a very big thing that a lot of people are not aware about. And so I think it's an important thing that people should learn. So thank you very much again, Dr. Chona. Now let's move on to our next speaker. Mr. Mike, can you please answer the question, what is your take on food waste?
So yeah, we deal with this heavily in our business, food waste, with regards to what Dr. Chona said and what Dr. Rola said earlier. Here in the Philippines, we have a culture where we use parts of animals, or like parts of the produce that we cannot sell conventionally, and we use that for other stuff. Like for example, when Dr. Rola said intestines, we eat chicken intestines, we congeal blood from pork, I think. So we eat that also. Well, from Dr. Chona's example, we use fish bones, scales, fish head, and tail for the to make broth. Actually, you could ask some ramen makers in Japan, specifically some ramen makers who specialize in seafood. They use the parts of the fish to make very delicious ramen broth. Um, Food waste, yeah, we deal with that a lot. So what we tend to do is that we repurpose them to other things. For example, feed for um, fishes or like chickens. We also use that as fertilizer, but you cannot actually recycle or reuse them 100%. So a lot of it goes to the dumps and contributes to greenhouse gases due to its decomposition. So the key here is we like one of the guide questions asked here for the talk, where do we have enough food on earth? Actually, we do have enough food. We have tons and tons and tons. We have an abundance of food. It's more of a question of, do we consume them properly? Do we consume them smartly? I think that's the answer to our problem for food waste, is that we consume them smarter, or like we consume them more responsibly. So yeah, that's my take on food waste and how we could solve that from a business point of view.
Yes, so thank you so much, Mr. Mike, for addressing the very concept of this topic or this talk, which is about dealing with people who, dealing with the food waste problem, and knowing that there is an overproduction or oversupply of food. There is still a problem of starvation in other countries. So it's kind of an irony if we think about it. So thank you very much. And now, Dr. Rolla, what's your take on food waste and how to deal with businesses?
Yeah, so the disadvantage of the last presenter is that both of the speakers already answered some of my supposedly answers. But yeah, that's why I always wanted to stress about the emphasize about the promotion of agricultural education. Is that what Mr. Mike said, that how do we consume smartly? So that's really the basic and simple answer. It's just because who wastes food? We the people waste the food. So if we learn how to consume them smartly, produce them more smartly, and then we can say that there no zero food waste. There will always be food waste. Whatever we do, not everyone will be on the same page, because that's the that's normal for we're just humans. But at the end of the day, if majority of us are educated about agricultural education, and then maybe we will be able to address this problem. And also we can use it as fertilizer, also feed as feeds for our pets. Yeah, then other than that, that's my answer. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Dr. Rolla. So yes, it was mentioned earlier, I believe, about the circular economy being that minimizing as much as possible the waste that we produce. And when we say consume smartly, maybe the governments could systematize the production of food, and they could maybe monitor more the production, from the production to the consumer. So I think it's a very, very important for everyone to be well educated about agriculture. So thank you very much for answering our first question. Now, given the time constraint, we will just be answering one last question from one of the audiences. So we will begin by answering from Dr. Rolla, and then Mr. Mike, and then Dr. Chona would be the last answer. So the question is, do you agree or disagree? You have to eat less beef because it uses a lot of water for production. So you should eat chicken instead of beef or some alternative. So again, do you agree or disagree? You should eat less beef because it uses a lot of water for production, or use more other alternatives. So Dr. Rolla, you may have the floor.
Okay, so I'm gonna give a classic economist answer. It depends. So if you are a religion that doesn't eat pork, then you have no choice but to eat beef, right? So it's a source of protein that you have no choice. But yeah, in our situation today, because of the effects of climate change, and as we all know, that beef production is really harming our environment. I believe that we should limit our consumption of beef and turn to more fish and more chicken. And the reason why is that there are studies and there are evidences in the literature that white meat is healthier. So I guess it's gonna be on a win-win situation, to the point that you're gonna be healthier, and then it's gonna be better, not better, but less worse for the environment. So so that's my answer. Thank you very much.
Yes, so thank you very much on that insightful take, Dr. Rolla. I never actually thought about it. I wasn't aware, at least, that white meat could be a lot healthier than other types of meat. So this could also, I guess, the question could also tackle upon the question about veganism, if the other speakers would like to talk about it. What's your take on veganism? So, Mr. Mike, you have the floor.
As a lover of beef and beef products, I would like to heartbreakingly say that I have to agree on this, because from a nutrition point of view, while beef has the most protein out of all the meat offerings, it also comes with its own downsides. Like, for example, beef has a high amount of uric acid, which down the line it adds to, like, it makes you more susceptible to certain types of diseases and higher cholesterol, which I personally already experienced. So I'm really reducing on my income in beef. Yeah, adding to that, there are also the studies nga, with consumption of beef, mainly because of its high contributions to emissions. Like, for example, yung what Dr. Rolla said about cow farts, which emits methane, a greenhouse gas. So lessening our consumption and dependence on beef, or actually most meat products, is it's a very good wait I'm at a loss of words. It's a great answer to reducing our, I guess, sorry, I'm at a loss of words, because
It's all right. It's all right.
it's not
I
my
think
my specialty. But yeah, reducing meat consumption is a very nice practice to do. And adding to that, veganism, all these practices, veganism, paleo diets, it's all about smart consumption. It's all about ethical consumption. It's about responsible consumption. So I think that's a better way of practicing, rather than focusing on what you can and cannot eat. It's more about responsible consumption.
Yeah, so I guess that was a really good point. It's all about smart, responsible, and ethical consumption. It just is all dependent on the part of the consumers. It all takes at the end of the consumers, rather. All right, so thank you very much. Now we have our last panelist, Dr. Chona. What's your take on this question?
Well, I love beef, just like my fellow panelists, but I will have to agree with them that yes, beef is not just bad for your health, at least excess consumption of beef is not just bad for your health, but it's also bad for the environment. You need more water, more land, and more resources to grow beef, no? And plant-based alternatives are healthier and more environmentally friendly. However, does that mean we should just go vegetarian or go vegan? Well, as a biologist, I'd have to say no. Because if you recall your lessons on the animal kingdom, we have three kinds of animals: herbivores, who eat only plants; carnivores, who eat only meat; and then you have omnivores, that have to eat both plants and animals in order to acquire the nutrition that they need. Humans, based on our biology, are omnivores. And so if we eat only plants, we will not be able to acquire all the necessary nutrients in order to keep us healthy, wealthy, and wise. So if you want to consume a fully vegetarian or plant-based diet, you will have to take a lot of expensive supplements that will still be sourced from animals in order for your brain and your muscles to develop properly. So we have to think of our health also. Now, interestingly, since I love my fellow panelists for being very open-minded about genetic engineering and GMOs, thank you so much for that, Sir Rola. Woohoo! I'm so excited about that. Some scientists are actually making environmentally friendly beef by growing them in the lab. So using a technique called tissue culture, we eventually will never have to hurt another animal again, because we can now grow steak, delicious steak and burgers in a petri dish safely and cleanly. So I'm very much excited for that future, because now we will finally have beef without harming the environment. So very excited about that. Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much for that. Actually, very insightful. I never actually thought that veganism could actually be bad, because there have been a lot of articles, people advocating about it, but it doesn't actually mean that it's something that probably they want to do harm to other people. It's not that, probably, hopefully. But yeah, so thank you very much also for applying the answers or the presentations from our previous speakers. I hope that the audiences were able to learn from this interactive forum. And while we fix our technical difficulty over back here, does anybody have any question from the audiences? Or among the speakers, do you guys have any questions for each other? All right, I guess they're all good. So hopefully everybody is now well aware about agriculture and food education, and that they are also more advocate on how to spread the word about the importance of agriculture. So we must all learn, and we must all be open-minded to these types of topics. So once again, thank you very much to all of the speakers for attending this part of the event. A warm round of applause and virtual clap for those in Zoom. All right, so we are still waiting for our laptop to go back, but I guess I will now be calling on our MC to continue our presentation.
Okay, and we're back again. I would like to give a round of applause to Ms. Akiko for facilitating the interactive forum. So please give a round of applause. Thank you, Ms. Akiko. Thank you. So thank you so much for coming. It was a very insightful and great discussion. I'm really happy with all the people that came here. Lastly, we actually have our next SSO planned. And it's going to, again, be a little bit different than the typical SSO. And it's going to be a seminar on how to become a great public speaker. It's going to be a lesson for anyone who wants to learn and develop their public speaking skills. And it will be held in English, so it will be perfect to hone your English skills. Again, it's free registration. We don't have a time or date yet, but we will announce it from Facebook at Tamaishiki SSO or Instagram at Tamaishiki_is_SSO. So please feel free to follow us. And as Dr. Chona has said, it's going to be Earth Day in an hour, so make sure you turn off your lights. Yeah, that's what it is. Turn off your lights and reduce carbon footprint. Thank you all for coming and hope to see you in the next SSO. See you. Goodbye.